Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me. It wasn't the first time I had overheard something that shook me to my core, but it was the first time I heard her say it so plainly. My name is Carr, and I have spent most of my adult life as a quiet observer of my own life. I never questioned things too much, just let life unfold and dealt with whatever came my way. But sometimes, life gives you a moment, a brief flash of clarity, that forces you to see things you were never meant to notice. And on that night, I saw something I could never unsee. The house was quiet, too quiet. There's a certain stillness that takes over a home when everything is wrong, but no one is brave enough to acknowledge it. Amelia had been distant for weeks, maybe even months. There were no more intimate talks before bed, no more shared looks that said everything without needing words. It was as if we had become two strangers living under the same roof. But it wasn't until that night, the night I heard her voice crackle through the phone, that the reality of it hit me like a ton of bricks. She thought I was asleep. She thought I was in my usual routine, passed out on the couch after an exhausting day of pretending everything was fine. But I wasn't asleep. I was awake, lying in the darkness, listening to the faint sound of her voice from the other room. I wasn't supposed to be eavesdropping, but I couldn't help it. The tension had been building for so long that I couldn't ignore it any longer. I don't know how much longer I can do this, I heard her say, her voice shaky but resolute. I just wish Simon wasn't around. I need space. I need him to just disappear. Maybe then I could breathe again. It wasn't the words themselves that crushed me. It was the emptiness in her tone. She wasn't angry. She wasn't even sad. She was just resigned. It felt like she had been carrying this weight for so long, and now, finally, she was saying the words out loud. To someone else. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I stayed frozen in place, listening as she continued, completely unaware of my presence. I feel trapped, she said. Everything feels like a routine, a chore, and I don't know if I even care anymore. I just want out. Out. The word lingered in the air. It wasn't just a cry of frustration, it was a declaration. She was done. Done with me, done with us. And in that moment, I realized just how far we had fallen. I didn't confront her. I didn't storm into the room and demand answers. I didn't yell or beg. I did what I had learned to do over the years. I stayed quiet, kept my distance, and let the silence speak for itself. But something inside me shifted that night. A part of me broke, but another part, a much colder part, began to take over. I wasn't going to let this go. I wasn't going to let her simply wish me away without understanding the weight of her words. The next morning, nothing changed. Amelia acted like everything was normal. She smiled, made breakfast, asked about my day. But I knew she was already gone in her mind. She didn't see me anymore. She only saw the man who had become a routine, something she could discard without a second thought. I didn't make a scene. I didn't pack my bags or leave. No, I granted her wish, but not in the way she expected. I became a ghost in my own house. I stopped initiating anything. No more casual conversations, no more asking her how her day was. I stopped making her coffee in the morning, stopped bringing her favorite snacks when I went grocery shopping. I stopped pretending like everything was okay. At first, she didn't seem to notice. It's strange how someone can be so caught up in their own world that they don't realize how far they've pushed the other person away. But the longer I stayed silent, the more it seemed to bother her. She would ask me if I was mad, if something was wrong, but I never answered. I just let her wonder, let her feel the weight of her own words hanging in the air. A few days later, Amelia tried to confront me. She sat down on the couch next to me, her body tense, her hands shaking slightly. Simon, what's going on? Why are you acting like this? Why are you treating me like I don't matter? She asked, her voice cracking with desperation. I turned to her slowly, my eyes cold, unreadable. You wished I wasn't around, I said quietly, each word deliberate. You said it yourself. The look in her eyes was one I'll never forget. It was a mixture of surprise and fear, like she had finally realized that I wasn't the man she had left behind. The man she thought would always be there to forgive, to fix, to understand. You don't mean that, she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. I was just frustrated. I didn't mean it. But I didn't believe her. Not anymore. You don't get to say those words and take them back, I said, my voice steady, colder than I had ever heard it before. You wanted me gone. So now, I'm giving you exactly that. Her face crumpled. For the first time in what felt like forever, I saw her vulnerability, her fear. She wasn't the strong, independent woman I had once known. She was broken, pleading for something she didn't even understand. But by then, it was too late. I had granted her wish, and she wasn't ready for the consequences. The woman I had once loved, the woman who had once been my everything, now had to face the reality of her words. And it wasn't just about me being gone physically, it was about her losing everything. The silence between us was deafening, and for the first time in years, I knew I had nothing left to give her. The consequences were now hers to bear. The next few days felt like walking on a thin line. Amelia wasn't oblivious to the shift. She could feel it in the air, the weight of my silence pressing down on her. But she didn't know how to fix it. She tried to fill the gap with small gestures, making dinner, offering me the occasional smile, attempting to engage in our usual routines. But it all felt hollow. I didn't respond to her efforts. I didn't tell her what was on my mind or how much her words had stung. I didn't want to. In fact, I didn't want anything from her anymore. The emotional distance had turned into something more tangible. It wasn't just that I was withdrawing. I was beginning to see her through new eyes. The woman I had once adored was now the woman who had declared she wanted me gone. One evening, a week after the conversation that changed everything, I found myself sitting alone in the living room. The house was quiet, save for the faint hum of the refrigerator. I was staring at the blank TV screen, not watching anything, just lost in thought when I heard her footsteps approaching. Amelia stood in the doorway, hesitation written all over her face. "Simon," she began softly, "we need to talk." I didn't look at her. "About what?" I asked, my voice flat. I know I messed up," she said, her voice trembling. I didn't mean what I said. I was angry. You know how things have been. You've seen it, too. I could feel the guilt in her words, but it didn't move me. I had heard her apology many times before, in different forms, in different tones. But this time, I wasn't interested in her excuses. I wasn't interested in her, I didn't mean it lines. What mattered now was that she had said it. She had wished for me to disappear, and she didn't understand the gravity of those words. "I heard you, Amelia," I replied, my eyes still fixed on the TV. "I heard everything." She was silent for a moment, and I could hear her breath catch in her throat. Then, finally, she spoke again, her voice small, almost pleading. "I'm sorry. Please, talk to me. Please. I don't want to lose you." But I had already made my decision. I wasn't going to be the man she used to lean on. I wasn't going to be the one to fix everything for her this time. I wanted her to understand the weight of what she had said. I wanted her to realize that words, no matter how fleeting, can cut deeper than any action. "I'm not angry," I said, my voice colder than I intended. "I'm just done." She didn't know how to respond. I could see it in her eyes. She wanted to argue, to explain, to take it all back. But she couldn't. The words had already been spoken, and I wasn't sure I could ever look at her the same way again. She had wished for me to disappear, and in my silence, in my withdrawal, I had granted her that wish. And that, I realized, was the most painful part of it all. She thought she could get rid of me, but she had no idea how empty her life would feel without me, how much she would crave the very thing she had dismissed. The days turned into a slow crawl, and I began to notice things about her that I had never paid attention to before. She seemed more anxious, more unsettled. Her once confident stride had become hesitant, like she was walking on eggshells around me. And I didn't stop her. I didn't try to comfort her. I let her feel what I had felt for so long, the isolation, the growing distance. Then, one evening, after dinner, she looked at me with a mixture of frustration and fear. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Why won't you talk to me? You're acting like a stranger." I turned to her, finally meeting her gaze. "Am I really the stranger, Amelia? Or are you the one who's changed?" The words hung between us, thick and heavy. I could see the truth dawning on her. The weight of what she had done was finally sinking in. And as much as she tried to mask it, I knew she was terrified. Terrified of losing me, but more than that, terrified of the consequences of her own wish. Days passed, each one bleeding into the next. I stopped counting the hours we spent in the same house without speaking, without even acknowledging each other's presence. Amelia had tried to reach out a few times, of course. She would ask if I was okay, if I was still upset, but each time I just nodded and walked away. I didn't need to say anything. I didn't owe her an explanation anymore. Her wish had been granted, and I was finally taking control of my own life. It was early in the morning when I first noticed the change in her. She was getting ready for work, but there was something off in the way she moved, the way she carried herself. She used to walk with purpose, confident, ready to face whatever the day brought. But now, she seemed smaller, unsure. The woman who had once radiated independence now looked like she was treading on thin ice, unsure if each step would break her. I didn't acknowledge it. I didn't say anything to her. But when I passed her in the hallway, I couldn't help but catch the look in her eyes. It was the first time I saw true vulnerability in her since this all began. The realization of what she had lost was finally catching up to her. And it wasn't just the physical distance between us anymore. It was the emotional chasm she had created, one she couldn't cross. That evening, as we sat in silence once again, I watched her more closely. She didn't eat her dinner, barely touched the glass of wine she had poured herself. The woman who used to savor every meal was now just going through the motions. Her gaze kept drifting to me, her lips trembling, as though she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she spoke. "Simon, please. I can't keep doing this." Her voice cracked as if each word was a weight she could no longer bear. I didn't respond immediately. I just stared at her, my mind racing through everything I had felt over the past few weeks. The hurt, the betrayal, the isolation. But more than anything, I realized something. I wasn't the same man anymore. She had pushed me to this point, and now I was going to make her feel the full impact of her words. "You can't keep doing what?" I asked, my voice colder than I intended. Us. I don't know what happened, but I can't stand it anymore," she whispered. "I know I messed up. I said things I didn't mean, and now you're just gone. You're not here anymore, Simon. You're not the man I married. You don't talk to me. You don't touch me. You've become a ghost in this house, and She stopped herself, as if realizing too late the truth of what she was saying. I leaned forward slightly, my eyes locking onto hers. "You said you wanted me gone. You said you needed space. I'm just doing what you asked for." Her face paled as the weight of those words hit her. She opened her mouth to say something, but no sound came out. She was stuck in her own realization, stuck with the consequences of her careless wish. She was breaking, and I couldn't bring myself to care. "I never meant it like that," she said, finally breaking the silence. "I didn't mean for it to go this far, Simon. I thought maybe we could fix it, but now I don't know what to do." The desperation in her voice, the way her hands trembled as she wiped away a tear, almost made me feel something. Almost. But then I remembered her words, her wish, and the years of silence that followed. The truth was, she had pushed me to the edge, and now I was letting her feel what it was like to fall. "I can't fix this anymore, Amelia," I said quietly. "You wanted me gone, and now I'm gone. You can't just erase what you've said." Her breath hitched as she looked at me, searching for any sign of the man who had once loved her. But I wasn't that man anymore. I wasn't the person who would fix everything with a smile and a few kind words. I wasn't the person who would forgive and forget. This was her consequence, and she had no idea how far it would go. The silence that followed was unbearable, but it wasn't my silence anymore. It was hers. I had given her exactly what she had asked for, but she wasn't prepared for the emptiness it would bring. I wasn't going to be the one to fill the void. That was on her. For the first time in months, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. She had wished for me to disappear, and now she was feeling the weight of that wish. It wasn't just about being physically absent anymore. It was the realization that she had driven me away, and now there was no coming back. The consequences had only just begun. The days stretched on, each one a quiet testament to the distance that had settled between us. Amelia tried to keep things normal, to salvage some part of our routine, but it felt like she was swimming against a tide she couldn't control. There was a sense of urgency in her every move, as if she were running out of time, and yet, the more she tried, the more I withdrew. I wasn't being cruel. I wasn't deliberately trying to hurt her, but I wasn't going to pretend anymore. I wasn't going to be the person who allowed myself to be ignored, overlooked, and then discarded with a few careless words. She had wished for my absence, and now, with every passing day, I was giving her exactly that. I noticed her trying to talk to me in the mornings, her attempts at small talk as if we were still the couple we used to be. but I would simply nod and continue with my day. There was no warmth in my gestures, no longing for reconciliation. I wasn't angry. I was beyond anger. I was just done. One evening, a few weeks after the initial confrontation, Amelia asked if we could go out. "We never do anything anymore," she said, her voice soft, almost pleading. "Please, let's just go for a walk. Talk about anything. I don't want this silence between us." I looked at her, and for a moment, I almost felt a flicker of something. Maybe pity, maybe frustration. But I quickly pushed it aside. "You asked for this, Amelia. You wanted space. You wanted me gone." She flinched, her face contorting with guilt. But I wasn't moved. The weight of her wish, her words, was still fresh in my mind, and I wasn't going to let her erase them with a simple request for a walk. "I never thought it would get like this," she whispered. "I thought you'd forgive me. I didn't know how far I'd pushed you. Please, Simon. I don't know what to do." Her voice cracked, and it stung me, but I kept my expression neutral. "It's too late for apologies, Amelia. You can't just take back what you said." Her eyes welled up, but she didn't cry. She just stared at me, as if waiting for some kind of response, some sign that the man she once knew was still inside me. But he wasn't. I had let go of him the moment I heard her wish for my absence. I was no longer the man who would come running when she called. "I don't know how to fix this," she said quietly. "You can't," I replied, my voice steady but distant. "You've already broken it." The conversation ended there. There was nothing left to say. Amelia stood up slowly, her shoulders slumped in defeat. She walked away, her footsteps echoing down the hallway, but I didn't follow. I didn't try to comfort her or offer any kind of reassurance. I had given her the distance she wanted, and now she was finally realizing what that distance meant. Over the next few days, she became more withdrawn. I could see the panic rising in her eyes, though she never spoke of it. She started spending more time away from home, leaving in the mornings and returning late in the evening. I didn't ask where she went. I didn't care. It wasn't about her anymore. It was about what she had done, and the consequences were unfolding exactly as they should. One night, as I sat in the living room, alone as usual, I heard her come home. The sound of the front door opening, followed by her footsteps in the hall. She paused at the door to the living room and stood there for a moment before speaking. "I've been thinking a lot," she said, her voice soft, almost fragile. "I can't keep pretending like everything's okay. I need to fix this, Simon." I didn't look up from the book I was pretending to read. "You can't fix it," I said, my words cutting through the silence between us. "It's broken beyond repair." She didn't respond right away. The room felt heavy with her unsaid words, with her guilt, but I didn't care. I had stopped caring about her apologies. She had wanted me gone, and I had granted her wish. The silence that had settled between us was no longer an uncomfortable tension. It was just the way things were now. "I never thought it would hurt this much," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I never thought I'd be the one wanting you back." Those words, spoken so softly, so vulnerably, almost made me feel something. Almost. But the part of me that had once loved her was buried beneath the layers of hurt, and it wasn't coming back. Not this time. The room was silent once again, but this time, it was a silence that carried no weight. It was the calm after the storm, and I could feel it. Amelia was beginning to realize that she had crossed a line she couldn't return from. The silence between us had become unbearable. It wasn't just the lack of conversation. It was the way Amelia moved around the house, as if she didn't quite know how to exist in the space we had once shared. The once comfortable routine of living together, side by side, had turned into a quiet battle for control. She tried to pretend everything was fine, but I could see the cracks in her mask growing wider. One evening, she came home later than usual. I had already eaten dinner alone, and the house felt colder than it had in days. When she walked through the door, I barely acknowledged her presence. Amelia stood there for a moment, her eyes scanning the room, as if searching for something she had lost. "Simon," she said softly, almost cautiously. "Can we talk?" I didn't look up. "About what?" Her voice wavered, but she pressed on. "About us. About everything. I can't keep pretending like nothing's wrong." I finally glanced up at her, meeting her eyes. For the first time in a while, I could see the desperation in her gaze. She was reaching for something, anything, to fix the mess she had made. But the truth was, there was no fixing it anymore. She had wished me gone, and now, I was gone in a way she never expected. You don't get it, do you? I replied, my voice steady. You wished for me to disappear. And now I have. You can't just reverse that. She flinched, as if the words physically hurt her. And for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. But that feeling quickly vanished. She didn't deserve my sympathy anymore. She had made her choice. I had made mine. I didn't mean it like that, she said, her voice pleading. I was frustrated. I was angry. You know how things were. I just needed space, but not like this. Not this silence. I stood up and walked over to the window, staring out at the darkening sky. It doesn't matter what you meant, Amelia. Words have consequences. And now, you're living with them. Her silence was telling. I could feel her confusion, her regret, but it wasn't enough. The damage had already been done. The moment she wished me gone, she had unknowingly sealed her fate. She stepped closer to me, reaching out as if trying to bridge the distance. Please, Simon. I've been so lost without you. I don't know what to do. But I didn't respond. I just stood there, watching her, waiting for her to understand that nothing could fix this. The person I was before, the one who would have rushed to her side, would have comforted her, was gone. I had granted her wish, and now she had to deal with the emptiness that came with it. She looked at me, her eyes brimming with tears. I don't want to lose you, she whispered. The words hung in the air between us, but they meant nothing anymore. She had already lost me. The person she had once known, the one who would have never turned away, was gone. And it was her doing. I finally turned to face her, my expression unreadable. You already have, I said quietly, my voice colder than I intended. For a moment, Amelia stood there, frozen. Her shoulders slumped, and she looked small. The weight of what she had done was sinking in, and it was more than she could bear. I could see the realization in her eyes, but it was too late for any of it. I didn't need to say anything else. The consequences of her wish had already broken her, and now, it was just a matter of time before she would have to face the emptiness she had created. The silence between us was no longer just a void. It was a permanent chasm, one that neither of us could cross. And so, we stood there, two strangers in the same house, trapped in a cycle of regret and consequence. The woman who had once wanted space, freedom, had unknowingly pushed me away in a way that could never be undone. And now, she would live with it. The days blurred into each other, each one feeling like an echo of the last. Amelia continued her attempts to bridge the gap, but her efforts became more desperate with each passing day. She would leave little notes around the house, reminding me of old memories, things we once did together. But I didn't react. I didn't pick them up or even acknowledge their existence. I was a ghost to her now, exactly as she had wished. It wasn't that I hated her. No, it was something colder, something more final. I didn't hate her. I just didn't care anymore. I had done what she asked. I had stepped back, withdrawn, and let her live in the reality she had created. One evening, a week after our last conversation, she approached me again. This time, it was different. She seemed almost broken. Her shoulders were hunched, her eyes puffy, as though she hadn't slept properly in days. She stood at the edge of the living room, watching me for a long moment before speaking. Simon, she said quietly, I need you to understand something. I was wrong. I never should have said those things. I didn't mean it. I was just frustrated. I didn't look at her. Instead, I stared at the wall, tracing the cracks in the paint with my eyes. You can't take back what you said, I replied flatly. It's not about whether you meant it or not. You made your choice. You wanted me gone. So now I'm gone. She stepped forward then, her voice wavering. But I didn't want you gone like this. I wanted us to be okay again. I didn't realize how much I needed you until now. Please, Simon, please. Her voice broke, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a twinge of something. But it wasn't sympathy. It was something colder, something distant. I couldn't help but feel a quiet satisfaction that she was finally realizing the weight of what she had done. You think I'm going to forgive you because you say you're sorry? I asked, my voice soft but cutting. You can't erase what's happened. You wished me gone, and now you're left with the consequences. She looked at me then, her eyes wide with disbelief. But I didn't mean it, Simon. I just didn't know how to deal with everything. You were always there, but I couldn't see it until you were gone. I stood up slowly, my body tense with the realization of how far we had come, how far she had pushed me. That's the problem, Amelia. You didn't see it. You took me for granted, And now you're finally starting to understand what happens when you push someone too far. You wanted me gone, and now I'm not just gone physically. I'm gone emotionally, too. She shook her head, tears falling freely now. I never thought you'd actually leave me, Simon. I never thought it would come to this. I thought I could fix it. Well, it's too late for fixing, I said. You don't get to break someone and then ask them to come back. It doesn't work like that. The words stung, and I saw the hurt flash in her eyes. But I didn't care. She had made her bed, and now she was lying in it. She had wished for this distance, for this emptiness, and now she was feeling the full weight of what that meant. I turned away from her then, unable to watch her crumble any longer. You've got what you wanted, Amelia, I said, my voice quieter now, almost indifferent. I'm gone, and you'll have to live with that. She stood there in silence, the weight of my words sinking in. And in that moment, I knew that there was no going back for either of us. The distance had become permanent, and the consequences of her wish had already shattered what was left of us. The silence between us was no longer just the absence of words. It was the absence of any chance for reconciliation. I had granted her wish, and now she was left to face the emptiness she had created. There was no coming back from this. The woman who once wanted space, who wished for me to disappear, had finally realized what it truly meant to lose someone. And I didn't know if I could ever be the man she needed again. The weeks that followed were torturous for Amelia. I could see it in the way she walked around the house, in the way she looked at me, like she was waiting for me to return, to be the man I used to be. But I wasn't coming back. I had stopped being that person the moment she had wished for me to leave. It wasn't that I enjoyed watching her suffer. No, that wasn't it at all. But there was something almost cathartic about it. She had built this house of cards with her words, and now it was collapsing all around her. The worst part was, she didn't know how to fix it. She had no idea what it felt like to be on the other side, to have everything you thought you could rely on crumble away without warning. One night, I was sitting in the living room, reading a book. The house was still, as it always was now. I barely noticed when she entered, but when I did, I could see the hesitation in her step. She paused by the door, watching me with an unreadable expression. Simon, she began, her voice soft, as if she were afraid of what might come next. I need to talk to you. I didn't look up from my book. About what? About everything, she said, taking a tentative step closer. I know I've hurt you. I know I've said things I can't take back. But please don't shut me out. I didn't answer right away. The silence between us stretched out. I felt the familiar weight of her presence, but it no longer felt like home. It felt like a ghost was standing in front of me, asking for forgiveness that had already been lost. You asked for this, I said finally, my voice low but firm. You wished for me to be gone. So now I am. Amelia's face tightened, her lips trembling. She took another step forward, her eyes never leaving mine. I never meant it, Simon. I was angry. I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. I was selfish, and now I'm paying the price. I could see the tears welling up in her eyes, but I didn't feel the need to comfort her. I didn't feel the urge to tell her everything would be okay. It wasn't okay, and it wasn't going to be. I had granted her wish, and now she had to live with it. You think you're the only one paying the price? I asked, my voice a little sharper than I intended. You think I haven't been suffering too? But the difference is, I didn't have a choice. You made your decision, and now I'm just living with the consequences. She looked like I had slapped her. For a moment, there was a flash of anger in her eyes, but it quickly faded into something else, something almost sad. She opened her mouth to say something, but I cut her off. You pushed me too far, Amelia, I said quietly. You wanted me gone. And now I'm gone, not just in body, but in every way that matters. Her shoulders slumped, and she took a step back, as if the weight of my words had physically knocked her off balance. She didn't say anything for a long time. She just stood there, staring at me as if she were waiting for me to change my mind. But I wouldn't. You can't keep pretending like everything is fine, I said, my voice now barely above a whisper. You can't just erase what's been said, what's been done. She shook her head, wiping a tear away. I never thought it would come to this, she whispered. I never thought I'd lose you like this. The irony of it hit me then, harder than it ever had before. She had been the one to choose this. She had been the one to wish me away, to push me into a place where I couldn't come back. And now, she was the one left standing in the wreckage, trying to put the pieces back together. You're right, I said, almost to myself. You never thought it would come to this. But it has. Amelia's breathing became shallow, and I could see the panic creeping into her eyes. She wanted to fix it, wanted to rewind time, but she couldn't. Not now. Not when the damage was so deep. I wish I could change it, Simon, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I do. But I can't. I can't undo what I did. Exactly. I replied, my words heavy with finality. You can't. And now, you're going to have to live with that. The room fell silent again, but this time it wasn't the emptiness of our previous silences. This time, it was the silence of realization. Amelia was finally seeing the weight of her actions, but it was too late for apologies. Too late for regrets. I stood up then, turning away from her without another word. I knew she was still standing there, still watching me, but I didn't care anymore. I had granted her wish, and now she had to face the consequences. And I wasn't going to be there to pick up the pieces. Weeks passed since that last conversation, and as time went on, I began to notice something shift in me. The initial numbness, the cold withdrawal, the anger, it all started to fade. The emptiness Amelia had created in our lives slowly began to fill with something new. Something for me. For the first time in a long while, I was free. Free from the suffocating expectations, the constant need to prove myself, and the pressure of trying to hold a broken marriage together. Amelia continued her attempts to reconcile, but with every passing day, I found myself becoming less and less interested in the woman who had pushed me away. I had given her what she wanted, but the consequences, the fallout, had been far greater than either of us could have anticipated. She was left trying to pick up the pieces of her own mistakes, while I found myself growing stronger, more focused, and more content with who I had become. It wasn't that I wished ill upon her. No, it was more a quiet satisfaction, knowing that the life she had once thought she could control was slipping away, just as she had wished for me to slip away. The strange thing was, she didn't seem to understand the depth of her own actions. She kept reaching out, kept apologizing, kept trying to put the pieces back together. But I wasn't the same person anymore. I had learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes, letting go is the best way to regain your own power. I had spent years building a life that revolved around her, around trying to make her happy, trying to fix what was broken. But now, I was finally fixing myself. A few months later, I was invited to a friend's wedding. It was the first time I'd felt like doing something just for me. I went alone, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. It felt good to be out in the world again, to experience life on my own terms, without the weight of a broken marriage hanging over my head. The night was filled with laughter, joy, and an overwhelming sense of freedom. And then, as fate would have it, I ran into someone. Her name was Emily. She was kind, witty, and confident in a way that made me feel like I had been missing something important. We talked for hours that night, about life, about relationships, and about everything in between. There was no pressure, no expectation, just two people connecting over shared experiences. It felt refreshing. As we said our goodbyes, Emily smiled and handed me her number. I had a really great time tonight, she said. Maybe we can do this again sometime? I couldn't help but smile back. I hadn't felt this way in a long time. Truly seen, truly appreciated. The idea of moving on, of letting go of the past, didn't seem so impossible anymore. Meanwhile, back at home, things were deteriorating even further for Amelia. She had tried to get close again, to apologize for the things she had said and done, but it was too late. I wasn't the man who would fix things anymore. I had stopped being that man when I realized I didn't need to fix her. I needed to fix myself. I learned later that Amelia had tried to start dating again, but the truth was, no one could replace what she had taken for granted. She had pushed me away for so long, assuming I would always be there. But the more she reached out to others, the more she realized she was facing the consequences of her actions. People saw her for who she had become, not who she once was. She became isolated, and the loneliness she had once projected onto me began to consume her. She had wanted freedom, but what she got was isolation. As for me, I found something I didn't know I had been missing for years, my own happiness. I wasn't burdened by the weight of a broken marriage anymore. I was free to be myself, to experience life on my terms, and for the first time, I truly felt like I had control over my own future. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't about making her suffer. It was simply the natural consequence of her choices. The universe had a way of balancing things, and in the end, it was clear that I had come out stronger, while she had been left to deal with the emptiness she had once wished upon me. I don't look back on those years with regret anymore. Instead, I look at the future with hope. Sometimes, in life, letting go is the most powerful thing you can do. And now, for the first time in a long while, I felt truly free. Please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. I read them all.